it's George Lees again, and I'm going to tell you something. This is the second attempt to upload a video on the Mayflower and the other ships that took the Pilgrims to America. Yeah, and the Pilgrim joke, like all of the others I've told you recently, is the Piso joke. Okay? And here we've got the revelation that the people are on board the Mayflower, and the other ships that sail have the elites on them, but in the output from the movies that are made, they are made to look like poor people. And these are the hand-picked dynasties, some of them coming from BLadon in Holland, and some of them coming from the UK, citizens, and they become citizens of the Plymouth colony on the west coast, on the east coast of America, and some of them are related tragically to their descendants, who are Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and all of the jokes that are in that name will be explained to you later on, and the politics of that person who claimed to be a pacifist before he was elected as the American president, but became the warmongering leadership team, and the sequestration of all of the citizens' gold and the New Deal will be explained. Can you see the New Deal is in the title of his ancestors? Okay, I'll explain that to you in a few minutes. There's the Mayflower Compact being signed. Let me just put the camera down for a few seconds rather. And this is the second failure for me to upload a 1 hour long video in recent days. I'm not sure what is happening with that, and it's quite terrifying that I'm dedicating all this time to it, and it could well happen again. Okay, so there's the OneNote pages. Let's make that full screen so we can see the things one at a time. Okay, and this is all fine art again, beautiful paintings of these teams at work, and the teams are known as the Pilgrim Fathers, and this is the landing point for them when they get to America, and that's the Plymouth Rock. Okay, and you can see that even the word Plymouth, the deployment of the mouth, is the Jehovah joke in religion, and that is the rock, like the rock in Jerusalem, yeah, and the rock upon which Solomon, the pagan's temple, was built, because there never was a Jesus Christ at that stage, and everybody was at that stage adhering to the rule that is in Deuteronomy in the Bible, that you must not create icons as humans that get worshipped. Yeah, that is idolatry, and it's banned in the Bible, and that is part of the jokes shared by the Monty Python's team. Okay, the film about it, which I watched the other evening, is really insightful, because there are all sorts of familiar names in the cast, and there is Anthony Hopkins, who plays all sorts of roles, right through to the world's fastest Indian. Yeah, that's a joke about a man called Bert riding on a motorbike across the Nevada desert, trying to break the land speed record. And when you hear all of the Americans roaring after him in support, they're shouting "Go Bert," which is the Dagobert joke about the people that are in the Piso and the Lagos the Rabbit bloodline from Alexander the Great in Macedonia, through the pharaohs, through the Roman court, the Roman emperors, all the way into Western Frankish Europe, And these guys, some of them, come out of Holland and the Flemish coast, and that is the Leiden joke, yeah, the lie den for the religious fraud. Okay, and Anthony Hopkins plays the butler in The Remains of the Day, and he's in all sorts of movies about all sorts of things, and very often it's in that posh upstairs downstairs sector. And here you've got the Mayflower itself. The other ships were called the Fortune, and sadly the other pair of ships that sailed was the Anne and the Little James. Yeah, that's the boy king that condones the writing by his courtiers and all of the advisors, because he's only 6 or 7 years old when the Christian Bible is released and printed in different forms north and south of the Scottish and English border, over which he has total jurisdiction. That is the Church of Scotland Bible and the Church of England Bible for sectarian conflict regions. Okay? And the names of all of the people in the cast are strikingly familiar, and the name of the people in the actual film are very, very enlightening too, because they are the families that are destined to be the presidents and all of the massive super elites. And let me show you the cast list if I can find it here. This was shut down in my previous attempts. Okay, so Anthony Hopkins plays Captain Jones. Yeah, he's in charge of the ship, and the Brewster character, who's one of the head clerics, is played by Richard Crenna. Priscilla Mullins is Jenny Agata. John Alden, Miles Standish, Rose Standish. Okay, nothing very sinister there. And this one is a belly laugh, yeah, because Christopher Martin is the lead singer for Coldplay. Okay, Christopher Martin, when he went to Imperial College London, University College London, studied ancient history, and that is the history of Catholicism and then all of the different denominations that break away. And he sings, all of his output is about religious fraud, and I've got some of those musical themes on the on one of those tabs, I think. Okay, so do you get it? Christopher Martin, the singer, and every one of their songs is about Judaism and the lights guiding you home to the Yom Kippur festival, and all of the songs about yellow and the Rothschilds family, and all of the songs about magic. All of it, all of their output is twisted to cover the falsification of the religious fraud. And he sings a song called Viva la Vida about the non-existent St. Peter, and that is the denial that Jesus ever existed. And the cock crowing is the bee rooster joke. It's all through the cast list, yeah, and the list of major characters that come out of those Plymouth sites in England and sail to the Plymouth colony in America. Okay, you've got a sheriff on board too, and they have their babies in the middle of the trip, and you've got Frank Hamilton playing William Mullins. Robert Cushman is played by WW1. Stephen Hopkins, and you've got Captain Reynolds is played by Guy Sorrell, and you've got Bennett, and there's another Brewster, and Giles Heal. Okay, in 1620 they sailed. Okay, the other ships are even more sinister, and many of them die en route because of the vicious circumstances, and they've got on board, I forget the name of the man, but he is one of the funders, and I'm going to take you now into how they get funded. Yeah, and that's the tabs that I've got on my OneNote profile. Okay, and this is the joke about Philip DeLanoy becoming Delaney's donkey. Yeah, and you can see the roots for that later on, and tragically that leads to the declaration of war against Germany, which I'll play for you in a little bit. I think we can do that down here. Let me do that as I find the key themes. So we just played you Hobgoblin, Foul Fiend. Oh no, I've lost it. Oh, I'm sorry, I've lost the tab with the speeches on for FDR declaring war against Germany, and I'm gonna have to find it again. Let's do it the other way. You can look up FDR declaring war for yourself. It's tragic that he has to do that, but the naming of this person, you can see that this is openly declared as an ancestor of Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and down here you'll see the basis for the jokes. So the fellow passengers are the cooks, and I've got a whole list of the fellow passengers. There's over 100 people on the tiny ship that is the Mayflower, and Francis Cook was the uncle of this fortunate passenger, and Philip Delano lived a long life in Plymouth Colony, where he became a person of some note, being involved in numerous governmental activities such as civil commissions and juries. Among his early activities was in becoming a very young investment purchaser in 1626. I'll explain that to you later. It's the funding of the taking over of the whole of America from its natives that are the Indian nations, the 500 nations that get culled by these people. And on board the Mayflower you see the mercenary soldier training everyone how to use a musket and to kill the natives. Okay, at his death, this is the one that is the Delano man. Yeah, it's believed he had become a person of some wealth. Let me show you how that works. Okay, so loads of them on board are from the Walloon community, which is in BLadon near Holland, and the Walloon community is along the north coast of Europe. And they can be French speaking, and they are in Belgium too. Some of them are Catholics, some of them are Protestants, and all of it is perfect for eternal strife. Okay, so Banks has him as Philip Delanoy. That's one of the authors on the Mayflower ship, and here is the jokes. Okay, Cook and his wife Hester, you know that name from the banking world and from my website. That's Stephen Hester, who fled when I put the guillotine up on the front page of my website, like Miliband's brother. And the joke about Roosevelt will be forthcoming soon, I promise. Okay. No, it's not in that tab. So he's actually, the Delano character is on the Fortune, which is the second vessel that sailed, and the Fortune passengers are listed there. That's 1/3 the size of the Mayflower. It sailed a year later, 55-tonner this one. All of them arrive in Cape Cod, and that's the joke about the penis in religion and the cod piece. Do you get that? Yeah? All of it, the whole menagerie of fishes are tarted up and put into the story for a huge belly laugh. The boss is described as Billy Bradford, and the Fortune passenger list was comprised by the work of authors like Charles Banks and Edward Stratton. Okay, and here's the declaration that debts owed by the colony to the merchant adventurers, which is a massive scam, because they still run the companies, and I've got the director details, and I'll tell you those in a minute. Yeah, which were reorganised and taken over largely by the colony itself. So it's under a creditor group, it's in a toxic debt pool from its very founding. They're known as the purchasers. In 1627, the debts and shares in the company were assigned in to 8 Plymouth colony leaders and 4 merchant adventurers, all known as undertakers. Yeah, and John Adams, this is the list of people who are on there. Bumpus, Jonathan Brewster, Briggs's, a fellmonger hide dealer. Got Briggs's in my hometown. Met me a couple of times on the pavement yesterday. Clement Briggs, yeah, John Cannon, and here's all the fish jokes. And Tench, William Tench, William Connor, Robert Cushman, Thomas Cushman. Cush is the name of the Nile, do you remember that? Allerton, Pilgrim Isaac Allerton, son of Robert Cushman, and there's the Belgian roosters. Do you get it? The bee roosters. Yeah, that's the cock that crowed 3 times when St. Peter denied that he knew Jesus. Both of them are fictitious characters, and Coldplay sing about that. For some reason I can't explain, I know St. Peter won't call my name, 'cause the road is long. So that's St. Peter being locked out of the pearly gates, sung by Coldplay, Christopher Martin, who's on the Mayflower. Yeah, first class degree in ancient history, and has a whole belly laugh at the whole of all of the genocides that they create. Okay, this is tragic. I will need to find you the declaration of war by President I forget what his first name was. Philip Delano, though, is his ancestor, and it's Philip Delanoy, and when you translate that, it becomes Philip and the New Deal. Yeah, Delano means the New Deal, and that is the massive scam that will be explained in those tabs about how the country gets its unemployment rates down by sending all of the people, black, white and slightly red coloured, if there are any of those left alive, or the Chinese migrants, or the South American migrants who move in and take over that country first. Yeah, all of them get culled in the Great Conflict, which President FDR is God Almighty, is, and there's the other, the Hester Dewsburys, the Flavilles, that's Flavia, and all of the links to the Roman courtiers that wrote the Bible. Fords, Martha Fords, John Ford, the legendary director in the cowboy movies about killing all the Indians. And then we get the Hicks and the Nixon connections, and the Hiltons, who are on the list of presidents. Okay, I'll show you that further down if we have time. Yeah, that is the Hiltons that are linked in to this tab on the Utrecht, and all of the lists of people that link in to the FDR bloodlines and the Nixon bloodlines and the Mitt Romney bloodlines and everything that we've told you already. Okay, here's the jokes about the Delaware, or the DELANO. Yeah, it's Delaney's donkey for the Irishman. Okay, these are on board, and this is the jokes about the UK New Deal, the US New Deal. There he is. He's a polio victim because every one of the fraudsters, God catches up with them in the course of time. Yeah, the man who was the boss in America in the lead up to World War I, which America also entered despite its pledge never to do so. Yeah, that was Woodrow Wilson's crimes, and the Kaiser Wilhelm had a crippled left arm. Yeah, they're all fascists, they're all right-wing extremists, and there are the banking runs at the banks that they crash, like they crashed them again in 2008. So this is the Great Depression. Those are on all the windows of the global banking systems and all the federal banks. That is the Ariana joke, the Aryan master race joke, that the spider's web is globalism for them, and all of the huge names in banking and the links to the Morgans are massive. Okay, that's the Great Depression, the lead up to every war. Everyone's impoverished, everyone's sent around the country on trains looking for jobs, and suddenly the trains take them to the death camps. Not in America, but they went across the Atlantic to their deaths on foreign continents. That's homeland security for the Americans, and that is the religious message from the Pilgrims. If anyone tries to interrupt our money stream, then you're going to get it in the neck, or in the firing squad, or in the psychiatric section. Okay, the Glass-Steagall Acts, the Emergency Banking Act. Mellon is the boss at the Treasury. He puts all of the citizens' gold into the Treasury, and it never comes back to the citizens, and the citizens never come back from the war, which is why the unemployment rates plummet, and there's the statistics on it. Okay, and so the purchasers, let me explain that now. Let's just quickly take you down the graphs of FDR's policies. And the Walloon colonies are in Belgium, which is now the hub for the European Union, and they come from France, Wallon, Picardy, and they're German and they're Gallo-Romans. Okay, that is the Gallic, the French connection to the Romans, and that is the Germanic, Frankish Administer. Okay, and the Walloons are along the north coast, right next door to the Flemish people, and you've got religious mixes, you've got different languages, and you've got that sectarian divide between Catholic and Protestant that was such a huge feature in the 30 Years' War. Okay, and the other ship that sailed, yet after the Fortune had gotten these people across, was called the let me explain that at the top. Okay, so The next ships in 1623 are the Anne and the Little James. Okay, that's Little James, that is the boy king that allowed them to write those sectarian Bibles and translate them into English. And all of a sudden, Ireland's at war and in revolution. They're affiliated with Germany in the great conflicts, and it is all a massive cull of the people. Okay, I've got the listings for all the passengers, and the jokes are all the way through it, all the way to the bank. Let me explain that statement now. Okay, so all the way to the bank is here in this listing for the Mayflower passengers. There's the tabs. I'll open them one at a time and quickly profile them. Okay, so the Mayflower sailed first in 16. See vital link to two other ships were Queen Anne and Wee James and the Fortune. Next tab. Okay, every one is a laugh up the sleeve. The three Pilgrim ships that went on to Salt Lake City were funded by the Merchant Adventurers Investment Group. That's those tabs. I'll take you there next. They were the Mayflower 1620, the Fortune 1621, the Anne and Little James in 1623. One might hazard a guess that, and look at the mist as they arrive in Connecticut or wherever it's called, Massachusetts, yeah, on the east coast of America. Look at the mist around it. Yeah, and there they are on the beachhead. One might hazard a guess that Little James is King James VI and First for religious divide. Mayflower in Plymouth Harbour, painted by William Halsall in 1882, when the whole story can be romanticised. Okay, 37 were members of the BLadon congregation, and that becomes a joke about the BLadon races, the BLadon races in the northeast of Scotland, where the Umfravilles then become the Mitford sisters and all the Nazis that take us into war as Nazis in 1939, and they are at the Earl's Court Congresses doing the Nazi salutes. Yeah, that is the Redesdale characters that were part of the story about the elites on the west of Scotland, yeah, the Cumbrian region, and all of the people that eventually go across to America and take religion there. Okay, the Mayflower's headed by Captain Christopher Jones. About half of these emigrants died, yeah, and many Americans can trace their ancestry back to one or more of these individuals whose saints and strangers together would become known as the Pilgrims, with the Pi word in it and the Grimm brothers, yeah, link to the university sector in Göttingen. Yeah, that is the Göttingen 7, with the university warmongering professors, two of whom are the Grimm brothers that write the Aryan master race stories and legends. Okay, right then, I think we'd better get down to the business world, otherwise we're going to run out of battery time. And I want you to know that these are still the current directory listings for the adventurous, yeah, the adventurous companies that are launched. Okay, so this is the British Business Register and a search for merchant adventurers, trading companies. Okay, 19 hits in the first search. Okay, still many of them, one or two of them still active, yet they're ever so ashamed of a fraud researcher catching up with them after all these years. Look at the places in which they are registered and the jokes that they represent. Okay, Company of Merchant Adventurers Limited, Lee Carr, Blandford Street, London, and that's the BLAN. So we've taken over the new world. Yeah, Ford Street, we're across the Atlantic. The merchant adventurers. This is where the money comes from. So the people in the undertaker sector in the community in America can be in debt to the city of London. Yeah, the whore in Revelations in the Bible. Which is why the flood control system was built at Greenwich. I don't think that that will be sufficient to overcome any wrath of God. Yeah, and here we've got the crescent joke about Islam. Yeah, that's the Islamic half moon, and deploying the mouth. That's the the jaw joke. Okay, and it with a small letter. Yeah, with the small letter L, it becomes the pi word again. Okay, this is Devon, and that is where the ships sailed from. Okay, so they've got nothing at the bank. The bar jokes are about the Jewish revolutions and the culling of the 3 million Jews in 100 years after the official launch of the Christian religion in Naples. Yeah, this is the Oxford branch. I think this one is still alive and live. Barrington Grove, Little Barrington, Oxford, the no bombing zone. Yeah, where the Wargraves sector is run from by Prime Minister Cameron, and that is Royal Wootton Bassett, Wootton Street, London, SE1 8TG. Royal Wootton Bassett is where they bury all of the dead troops from the body bags. Okay, and you can see how much money is in the hands of the declared people here. That's why the havens are all around the islands of the world, and all of the people that launder the money out of our society are now absolutely busted. All of the treasuries are emptied systematically by the politicians. Here's the mafias. That's Sciano, yeah, or Schiavo, yeah, like a mafia name. The only director on this one between April 2013 and currently November 2015. So this is still live, this one. Only one director, just to get the money to and fro across the Atlantic. I'm not sure what the comments are on the right here. Okay, Company of Merchant Adventurers of the City of York. This is when the massive dark cloud came across my home when I discovered this yesterday. Okay, these are just the first 10 of, I think there are 19, and you can see that all of it is covered up. The one in York is particularly secretive. That's the York Freemasons. Current directors, none. Previous directors, none. Total current, previous, none. Current employees, not applicable. Yeah, I'll show you their business hub. It's a poorhouse. Okay. And there's the Merchant Adventurers Hall. This one's active. Fossgate. Yeah, and I think that is defined later on, and that's in York. Yeah, that's the gate to the south that William Wallace got to, and that Longshanks was quaking about. And here we've got another sectarian region. That's the Irish flag now. Okay, Dunbar Street. Dunbar is where Archbishop O'Brien is still at liberty. Yeah, on the Lothian coast. Yeah, all along the Amman Valley region. This one's in Cork, which I visited with my wife and my eldest son in a wonderful holiday. But because my wife is English, she was hated by everyone in that country. At least that's the official story. But now what I've revealed about false religion in Ireland and the profiteering from it, no one can know whether or not my wife is in league with those people. Right. Next company. Some videos on executing claimants to the sectarian throne, and when I tried to find the subsidiaries and Ponzi's in Plymouth, Ireland, and all of the other jokes. So this is the merchant adventurers companies again, and I think this will be for a shareholding scam. Okay, so these are some of the ones that they would not let me into. Sorry, there was a problem loading the search results. So 19 companies, they would not let me see the directors for some of them. Yeah, they may have dropped off the end of the boat in the Saragossa Sea. Yeah, and all of the jokes about the Hearts of Oak and Britain's fleets leading the world. Rule Britannia. The next one's registered in New Bond Street. It's worth minus £15,000. Okay, and it's got £16.7 thousand pounds in liabilities. And then we get bad swell. The weather patterns are associated with God's reaction to what happens on the earth, and we're now waiting for the forthcoming Hurricane Kate to sweep across from America. Yeah, so the Pilgrims went to America, and what the gods are doing this week are sending Hurricane Kate back towards Britain, yeah, right across the stormy Atlantic. And it's stormy, and that's the bad swell joke, and it's in Appleton, yeah, in Oxford. That's the apple joke again, yeah, the original sin. Bankhouse Square, Congleton, Cheshire, where Britain's richest man lives. That's the Duke of Westminster. Told you that story. He's the boss at the British Legion. Yeah, love your neighbour. Jesus' biggest rule. Yeah, and it's the Congleton. Yeah, that's the King Kong jokes and the Kong Canal joke in Ireland. Yeah, and there's no fish in that particular joke, but it's Bankhouse Market Square, Congleton. And remember how the longhouse in the market is associated with the religious frauds, and all of that is all the way through Oxfordshire and Paris. And there's another one, Dunbar Street this time. Okay, and that is the Beersheba and the religious massacres involving the culling of the new Jewish nations. This one is a Poulton. Yeah, the Poultons are famous in the investigative journalist sector. They're famous in issuing false passports through a company called Baker and Mackenzie, and Sonia Poulton pretends that she would lop the head off the Queen, but because she knows I'm such an insightful person, she's never responded to my invitation to participate on Skype. This is still the merchant adventurers listings. Yeah, so there's a Poulton on that too. You can get your false passport, or you can get the story written up by Sonia on the quiet. And the man, Professor Poulton, who runs the Dunedin study, is able to bribe people to come back and talk about whether or not the drugs that they were allowed to use in Dunedin are doing anything bad to their mental health. Yeah, this is the most decent Poulton I'm aware of. That's Richie. The other director is Soromia Kearney, and they're still existing right up to July 2015. Okay. The Merchant Adventurers GB Limited, Earlston Court, Cheshire. Another one near the Duke of Westminster's pad at Eton. Yeah, in Crewe. This one's in Plymouth, in fucking Devon, where they sailed from. Linketty Lane, West Hartley, Plymouth, Devon. Okay, and that's a comment about Utrecht from Cumbria. Utrecht et al. They are live and only have the local parish collection in the pot. The colours are a giveaway. What am I referring to there? Not sure what that comment's about. Aram Merchant Advisors Limited. Okay. Rowan Avenue, Ulverston, Cumbria. That's where Blind Prince George is, and Utrecht, and all of the people who are in the Windsor Bush FDR bloodlines transit through Cumbria and the west coast and the east coast of the Scottish-English border. Okay, Merchant Adventurers of England dissolved. Okay, and I think we've done enough there. That one's Walton Street, London. That's Isaac Walton, the fisherman. The Fishers of Maine. Do you get it? Merchant Adventurers. This one's in Limekill, Barrelborough, Chesterfield, Derbyshire. Right, there's a second page. We'll skip that. I'm going to show you some highlights of what they do in this trading world. Okay, this is the home in York, and it's got all of the families that founded it are still listed, but they are not available as a listing online because it's ever so sensitive, as you're now aware. Yeah, that's FDR, who promised never to take us into war in his time in office. 2 years later, everybody is culled across the Atlantic, and this one's in the gate that Braveheart got to in York, the gate to the south of England, and this is a very flood-prone region, and it's a Norse region too, because the Vikings take over it, and they have massive memorials to all of the battles that were fought at York. And there is the flood-proofed home, the conference centre that used to be the poorhouse, and the floods occur all through that city. They get massive fires in York Minster just a few years back, and all of it reflects the God's reactions to these massive messianic scams. Jesus never lived, St. Peter never lived, St. George never lived, and the dragon, yeah, is in fucking Tel Aviv. Yeah, that's the Lydia stories. Right then, so the Merchant Adventurers Hall, York, and it's up on stilts, so it cannot be flooded. And these are the famous people that I could find from the website that's associated with that. Yet the official record keepers are actually in Kew, near the palace, yet the royal palace, and that's Kew Gardens, another shrubbery joke. Okay, let's look for some of the famous names for the founders of these Western adventurers that lend the money that eventually lead to the ownership of the whole of America. And it is already in the first few decades of that colony that they establish in a toxic debt pool forever, run from London and York. Okay, grant of arms by the College of Arms, and we're looking for names. This is the Fraternity and Guild of our Lord Jesus Christ, the York operation, and the Blessed Virgin Mary was founded. All of those are fictitious. And the fraternity bit has been changed for political correctness reasons. They were able to tell me that women are allowed in on the phone when I inquired politely of that government-run, information centre at Kew. And way back in the history of English government, you've got the religious fraudsters in power. Okay, so let's just look for some key surnames. There's quite a prominent surname: John Drake, William Drake, late of Coates Hall in Craven, quite a prominent name in the Deutsche Bank, Esquire, deceased bound apprentice for 8 years to William Ramsden of York. That could be the Harry Ramsden connections to the Italian mafias. File of letters from members of the Lowther family. So this is under a search for the Adventure investment company that funds the American adventure, and the culling of all of the 500 nations. Christopher Lowther, master citizen and clothworker of London for Hugh. Okay? John Buckworth, another name. George Masters, citizen and clothworker. Archive of the Webster family of Battle Abbey. The Battle Abbey estate records deposited by the East Sussex Record Office. That's East Sussex, where John Patterson lives, and the policemen wear white helmets like they do in the Isle of Man and in the tax havens in the Channel Islands. And we were warned about Hurricane Abigail last week when I discovered this. Daughter and co-heir of the merchant adventurer Thomas Jordan of London and Mere in Staffordshire. That means a boggy bit. At his death in 1720, he arranged the arrangement concerning the annuities due to the children of Sir Godfrey Webster under the 1814. Very important era, that. The whole world is on its knees in 1815 and all years beyond, because that's when the Rothschilds take over the central bank in London. Wills and Allied Papers, Webster and Allied Families, legendary name in fascism. Nesta Webster, like Nesta Hancock's. Stephen Fruin's accounts, the family of Brickwall in Northam. Personal account books of Benjamin Fruin and Stephen Fruin. They go to Newfoundland. Another island offshore, part of the legend of the men who stole the world and the tax havens. Volume 1, we've got Smiths and Sir Thomas Rose, and we've got main papers, House of Lords, records of the Parliament Office, House of Lords, and so this is the National Archive. William Saville, have you heard that name before? And the Savilles are freemen of the cities up near where the Cooks sailed from to the South Pacific, and the Cooks are Pilgrim fathers as well. That's Francis D. Cook, who becomes the ambassador. Lambeth Palace Library, this is where the information centre is. Okay, Hamburg's Henry Cavendish at Hamburg, 200 calivers and burgonets bought at Hamburg for the Earl and shipped to Hull. Hull is part of the maritime empire led out of London from the Admiralty buildings where Baroness Blackstone works. Okay, I'll explain that in a minute as we get down the tabs. So these are just the families that established the investment sector and the money lending sector, and they are the elites and politicians in Britain. Here's a Howard of Earl of Suffolk, Thomas Howard. They're associated with the Norfolks. That's the Dukes of Arundel, but this one's the Earl of Suffolk, Lord Treasurer to Lord X on the old and new companies of merchant adventures. Hologram, Longleat House, Longleat could well be Woburn. Yeah, there's a Longleat Zoo, I think. Yeah, right next door to Rothschild, Hertfordshire. Edward Hallfire Merchant, Mr. Brown at his office. Yeah, and the Browns are the founders of the Pilgrim Fathers too. That's on one of those bigger tabs that define the whole movement. Letter book of the 6th Earl of Denbigh. Yeah, we're wasting a lot of time on this. Just some of the throwaway names that are involved in the funding of Kenyon of Peel. This is the manuscript of Lord Kenyon. That is the joke about Kenyon products having the same initials as Calpurnius, Peasel, yeah, KP nuts, and all of that is all it takes to create the Kenyan supermarket explosions and the terror threats. When I explain that Kenyan products is Calpurnius Peso to the whole world, and they blow up those supermarkets in Africa, yeah, where the Islamic terror threat is believed to be the cause of those explosions. The whole world is run by panic and fear-mongering like that. Okay, so it's only 14 names in a list of over 300 that founded that company, and their other name is the York Mercers. These are the warmongering merchant adventurers that eventually establish the Mercers in America, and they get in league with the skulls and the warmongering universities, and they have massive funds, and you now see why. Okay, patronage, Queen Elizabeth I. That's why it's a royal institution in York. It's the poorhouse, yeah, it's the royal institution, and it's a trading empire that takes over the ownership of the whole of America as the Empire State. Okay, 1357, just after Culloden. Yeah, these are the royal patrons: Edward III, Henry VI. Foss means gate. Yeah, that's the joke about William Wallace getting to the gate to London and all points south. Okay, translated from Dutch. That's the Woolens joke, or the Wallens joke that I've told you about, and the Flemish nations. Current activist Dr. Jill Redford. Okay, I hope to get in touch with her soon, because I want the full list of 300. Kew National Archives are here. Yeah, that's the website that I got those facts on those names. Yeah, like the Howards. York Merchant Adventurers tab above. Okay, and then there's the Wikipedia entry that just defines what they're all about. Yeah, and how ancient all of this is. Yeah, 1066, the religious fraud is into our country. Adventurers of the City of York, the company of merchant adventurers of the City of York, who, although no longer dedicated to mercantile activities, are prominent in York and still exist as a charitable membership group. That's the launch of the false icon that is Jesus Christ by the Piso family. And there's the hall, and there's the lovely medieval city with the horses rising up all over it. Yeah, and the shaky, quaky waves all across the Atlantic that they have to circumnavigate. And these tabs up here are about the Greenwich Mean Time and how the 0 point in terms of latitude, I think that's longitude and that's latitude, but 0 for everybody's navigational point runs through the Greenwich Admiralty buildings. Yeah, and because the gods shake up the world with seismic activity and seismic plates, yeah, every now and again the Royal Observatory and the people that are in charge of mapping, yeah, and the time zones all around the world, they have to change ever so slightly the locations of these hubs because all of the continents are being shaken around by the gods whenever you get human evil. And there's Plymouth, where the founding fathers sailed from. Okay, and there's the Belgian coast, where the Walloons and all of the Flemish people come from. Yeah, and that is the launch pad for all of the frauds in wartime too, and all of the profiteering in wartime. Okay, and so that's from a place called Tunstall, and that's why KT Tunstall sings the song about you're exactly on the other side of the world from me. Yeah, straight line right through the Admiralty buildings, where Baroness Blackstone has twice refused to give me a job because I have no insight into current affairs, and she ran the Channel Tunnel scam for profit for her. She's now resigned as the boss in the university sector. Every one of the Russell Group bosses have resigned. Oh, we've got BT are trying to tell me something on the phone there. Right then. So, not sure what BT are trying to tell me. Ring my bells. What else have I got on the tabs? Let's see what I'm missing. Okay, so the people on the boat are people from places like Winslow and all over the home counties, all over Buckingham, Kempsey to Winslow, Buckingham, Buckinghamshire, also a no bombing zone. That's where the Free French came to. Okay, passengers of the Anne and Little James, that's on another listing. Further on, let's take you now to some of these names just to drop them into the debate. I think we've got down to so there's the documents in York, and they're ancient, and this is an Oxford tab showing us that they have shareholdings in some of these things, but they're not doing much better. Yeah, shareholders equity figure £2, issued share capital £2. Maybe I'll let them see me coming. Okay, Merchant Adventurers Limited. This is the ancient set of ships that took Christianity all the way across to the YMCA in California, and they are still issuing shares for profit. They lack ambition and maybe pray to Jesus to fund it. Okay, couple of quid in that shareholding that has been declared. All of these websites have been changed within the month of November since I started to investigate this, and here's one of the live boards. Okay, this is Directors and Company Secretary timeline for the company that is Merchant Adventurers Limited, and this one's 11 Badswell Lane, Appleton, Oxford. Okay, and they've got £2 worth of shares. Yeah, when I settle down again and I get onto other themes, you should revisit these business registrations. Right, I think we can go now to the Fortune, because that is the FDR tabs, and it is really ruthless. Okay, and I've shown you that these are the Anne and the Little James. Yeah, and the Little James got to America. A lot of the people had to be taken home because they were so sickly. Okay, you've got the usual suspects on board. Elizabeth Warren. These are the links to the rabbits from Macedonia all through world history. Yeah, all of the pipe smoking Harold Wilson jokes, all of the Phrygian Hats jokes. The Pilgrim Fathers wear the Phrygian hat. It's an icon for them. Okay, and the man who's in that movie, who plays the captain of the ship, the Mayflower, he will not allow them to wear those tall hats on board, because the traditional naval dress is the flat cap. Okay, and you've got all sorts of strife between the civilians and the people, because if they find the smuggled people who are reputed to be dissidents against the Queen in Britain, or the King in Britain at that stage, yeah, they're outlaws and they hide away in the hold, yeah, and the whole of it is a massive fraud, because these are the Warrens that are the Warrens that launch the Delaware joke, like the DELANO joke, yeah, the New Deal, okay, and they've got dozens of them. Anne Warren, Elizabeth Warren, Mary Warren. There's the Bartlett jokes about the man who led the team in the Great Escape movie, later married Bobby Warren, yeah, and the Warren is the place of residence for the rabbit community. That's the Connies, the Conservatives, and it is Hitler's friends in fascism and all of the takeover of the fascists of Latin America. That was the Vesti story, and the stories we told you about fascism in Brazil and Argentina just a couple of days ago. And the Wallens are clearly from that Belgian coast region, probably Catholics, probably French speaking. Yeah, it's a huge ethnic and religious mix, and none of them get on with their neighbours like Jesus demanded of them. And the Indians are particularly harshly treated. That's East and West Indians, yeah, that is in the tax havens, that is the Caribbean, and the pirates of the Caribbean are the people we're telling you about here. Okay, there's the Wallen nations. Let me just quickly take you up through that, in case there's, yeah, Oostwijn, yeah, the same jokes. Yeah, the 007, Stephen Tracy, and you've got links to Spencer Tracy, the Sprague families, the Bradford families. I think they become the governors for the new colony when they get out there. And the Leiden jokes about the BLadon races, I did not realise until this morning, and that is the magpie jokes about the people picking up the gold and silver, yeah, and that is the links to the Mitfords and the D'Umpravilles as they sweep across to Ponteland, yeah, where all of the elite footballers play, and they then begin to endorse the globalist project, and they play football all over the world. Kevin Keegan played notably in Hamburg. I went to watch them play against Heart Midlothian, and I was completely stunned how easily Hamburg beat Hearts, and how many pickpockets were in the audience for that match. That is the epicentre for the stealing from Hearts fans now by its directors, the Romanovs and the Rothschilds. Okay, the Hopkins is also a joke about the rabbit. Do you get it? Yeah, so we've got the Warrens, who are related to the Warren that allowed Mrs. Thatcher to trade the nuclear weapons with South Africa, and here we've got people being baptised in Whitechapel, where the Bank of England and Jack the Ripper was, and it's the St Leonard's, Shoreditch, London, the parish adjoining St Mary's, okay, where Stephen Hopkins was married in 1618, 2 years before the Mayflower sailed. Okay, the Ratcliffes. Yeah, it looks as if it may well be actually spelt Ratcliffes. And the jokes about the lemmings jumping off the cliffs, quite easily explained by the Fleming thing, but that's the lowlands on the European continent. Okay, Sarah Priest, yeah, the word pie in it. Yeah, everything is a joke, and this one is particularly because there is a St Cuthbert, and he's a local icon, and all through it you can see that the St Cuthberts are the Bert joke. That's the Bertie stammering king, and the Wilhelm joke comes into the story all the time, and the Michelle Pfeiffer joke is all through it too. I don't quite understand that. Okay, but it's all the way through it. And there's the Brewster links, the B Roosters. You get that bit easily. They're rugby heroes in Scotland. They've now totally, like the Ripley family. Andy Ripley died really young. Great rugby player, great sprinter, particularly good at rugby sevens. When you look for those now, you find only an American football story about the Brewster Club, yeah, and its links to rugby in Britain. All of the characters that played rugby for Stuart's Melville have been taken out of rugby history. There is no footage of them, there is no mention of them, and that is how they cover up all of the things that happen. Okay? And the Oldham stories are further up, and the Winslow boys, all of the popular cultures, Eleanor Newton, yeah, and that's the Eleanors that are all the way through that Piso, Bush, Windsor bloodline. Okay, Eleanor of Aquitaine, and you've got the Mitchells, experienced Mitchells. This is another financial dynasty. Thomas Mitchell of Cambridge, who was also of Amsterdam and Leiden. Okay, Fear and Patience Brewster, Robert Long, the Mortons. The Sun came out briefly on this one, I'm not sure why. It's the relaunch of the shoemaker and carpenter jokes. Juliana Carpenter. Okay, Manasseh Kempton, and this is the Berwick upon Tweed representatives, and that is gypsy language. The Manasseh is the female gender, and the Kemps are a massive financial dynasty. South African linkages. Okay, Edward Holman Banks, Clapham, Surrey. These are just the migrants on the boat. There's the Hiltons. That is the linkage to the Hiltons that we talked about in the bloodlines for the American presidents, and that will be listed somewhere else. I think we'll find it here. Okay, this is the Utrecht, and there we've got not Hiltons, but we've got several generations that are also mentioned in the Pilgrim Father stories. Let's have a look and see if we can find the Hiltons anywhere in that listing. Okay, so there's the Plantagenet regimes that take you through to Fulk of Anjou, Geoffrey Plantagenet the Fair of Anjou, and that's the blank bloodline, so that I can have a look at where these families kick in. And when I found those ones, we got a massive black cloud over our town yesterday. That's the Luttrells of the Hull region, yeah, and the West Riding of Yorkshire. There's Sir Godfrey Hilton, who's married into them. Yeah, that's the Hilton hotel chains and the massive links to the Tall Boys and the Cokefields very early in Christian history. There's the Umfravilles of Redesdale, the fascists that take you into Newcastle, and that's the BLadon, the BLadon races joke. And the other part of that story is that the great rugby winger that was Jonah Lomu, that's the cannibal Maoris, were brought to live near BLadon races as a massive laugh that the Christians could live peacefully with the pagan cannibals right on their doorstep. It's all pathetic. And because that man that almost won the World Cup with New Zealand, even although South Africa beat them, you now understand totally how all of the names are brought into sport to cover up all of these political and religious scandals. All of the Celtic team that won in 1967 are massive national figureheads like Murdochs, Simpsons, all of the names, Lennoxes, all of them are the people that have brutalised the world and taken over its ownership through all of human history. Okay, and I don't know where Kime is, but it comes into the stories about the Luttrells and the tall boys all the time. Yeah, and that's the tall boys that are the lion, the witch and the wardrobe jokes. Okay, and the Godfreys, the Luttrells and the tall boys. What have we got on there? Okay, so the Luttrells' town is also in Dublin, right on the banks of the Liffey, where Mick the Fish, who made the interview with me last week, lives. Yeah, that's in Dublin, sectarian Dublin. Sir Godfrey died in the second year of Henry III, 1218, and was succeeded by his son Sir Andrew de Luttrell of Iraham, and that's the Islam joke. Yeah, a twist of a couple of letters and we have Islamic terror launched by Christians out of Hull and all points south to the Admiralty buildings. Yeah, it went really black, and we've got a William Paganal, yeah, Lord of Islam. Yeah, and the Crescent jokes, and it is relentless. And we've had Paris terror this week, all of it false news to keep the European citizens in fear. And the popes are at the trough too. Okay, I'd like to show you, here's some more on the tall boys and the ancient histories of that, and all of them are power brokers, and all of them are covers for current day figures. Yeah, tall boys of Kime, I cannot find that on Google Maps. Clinton of Marstoke. Yeah, Hillary's running again because Bill's been exposed as a massive fraudster, and there's another Gascoigne and a Bullock. Yeah, Sandra Bullock, the blowing up of the Twin Towers, her being on rehab. Yeah, and there's George Tallboys, William Ingleby, yeah, of the Danish connection, and the Ings and the Catchings and the Ing name on all of the rugby jerseys, all across the All Blacks jersey, and the Ripleys are in these families in the Yorkshire, and that's the Ripleys that die really young in the talented rugby sector, and they play rugby at the same time as the man called O'Fire, and that becomes again the Chariots of Fire joke. Dimmocks, politicians in Britain. Okay, and the Luttrells, it went really black when I found the Luttrells, and I believe that in one of these listings there is another set of Murrachs or Murrays. Okay, Andrew de Luttrell, the descendants of Sir Geoffrey, were afterwards feudal barons of Imam. I think that's why it went so black, because that is the Islam joke. Yeah, Burke's extinct and dormant peerage. Croxton in Leicestershire, Sir Geoffrey, Pope Innocent II, Richard I, Geoffrey de Luttrell, Nottingham and Derby, Earl of Morton, but he was compensated upon the accession to the Earl of the throne as King John by extensive territorial and other grants. And there's where it is, Luttrell's Community College, right in the middle. There's Phoenix Park, where the massacre was. Yeah, that is where the Croke Park massacre was, I believe. Yeah, and all sorts of sieges were held. This is right in the heart of sectarian Ireland. Yeah, and they fought with the Germans, or would have liked to, and there is the joke about Lucan and Luke being written by the Pisos right in the heart of Ireland. Okay, so let me find you. So Christopher Martin's on the boats, and there's the stories about the Walloons and the people that were on the fortune as well. Yeah, and I've gotten in some of the names there, and it does not come bigger than the Warrens. Ken Warren was the man that loosed the money for Mrs. Thatcher's nuclear trading deals. Okay, and the Utrecht story is about the links to those huge bloodlines that take us in, and Mortons are Desmond Mortons, the man from Uncle in the wartime. So let me just show you, or open up another site and show you FDR making the speech that took America to war. And that's the FDR that I've just explained. The DELANO bit is the New Deal, and the New Deal is that if we take our country to war, yeah, all of it will result in our unemployment statistics getting better. And that is one of those tabs on the whole of the graphs and all of the Great Depression in the 1930s that impoverished America, led to all that human flux, and then all of them get put in uniforms and never come home. I'm going to have to put the camera down again. So, YouTube. FDR declares war, and he's got to declare war on Japan, and he's got to declare war on Germany too, and all of it is a human tragedy. And he gets polio, and Bill Gates then is obligated to engage in massively well-funded research campaigns to try and treat polio. Okay,